What's up, y'all? Confidently Flawed back. Danny and Brooke here to give you another episode all about health and wellness and fitness and becoming the best version of yourself. The last few weeks we really dove into a special topic for me because this is what we're all about here at Raw, and it's all about, the right fitness, the right nutrition, the right supplementation, and just getting the right plan in order. And it's all about the systems. But sometimes when that happens is sometimes we're still not hitting the mark, right? And sometimes we have no idea why that is. And Brooke, I know you have a lot of experiences, especially recently. I myself have as well, and worked with a lot of people that have ran into issues when it comes to just maybe certain foods just don't resonate with you. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much that can impact not only their health, not only their inflammation, but their energy, their mood, their weight, right? Like all these different non-scale things or factors and how much it can help. And Brooke, I know you're closely, heavily focused on it right now. So I would love to hear, if you're willing to kind of share your story, what you guys are going through and everything there, and, kind of drop some knowledge for our listeners here.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is a really important topic because I think this really is a true example of how health and fitness is not a one size fits all, because you could look at a meal plan that works amazing for like one person. I mean, and they maybe have lost as so much weight, the ideal weight that you want to lose, but you could do that exact meal plan and gain weight or feel like crap. And unfortunately, we do live in a day and age where we are surrounded by a lot of foods that our body wasn't meant to digest and or can cause so much gut inflammation to where it causes so many other sensitivities to other foods. And I think that the topic of inflammation needs to be talked about more when we talk about weight loss, because a lot of weight loss, like maybe plateaus could be the right word, or a lot of reasons maybe why just you maybe aren't losing weight is because you have so much inflammation in your body. You could literally be doing everything right. Your body could be on the path to lose weight, but if you have inflammation, you might not be able to lose that weight and you might quite frankly gain weight. And I think that's really important to discuss because that does, again, make it so you really do understand that something that's going to work for Danny isn't going to work for me always. And when we talk about inflammation, I think the biggest things that we need to be addressing is different food intolerances. Yes, I feel like we hear it all the time, a gluten allergy or a gluten intolerance or a dairy intolerance. And while I think it's wonderful that we're talking about those things, there's so many more intolerances and so many more sensitivities that we can have that are causing inflammation. And before I kind of get into it all, I want to share our story, my husband and my story, because it's truthfully mind blowing. So for those who maybe have been following along, my husband and I are struggling with infertility, and we've pretty much narrowed it down to an inflammation issue. We have male factor infertility, and the doctor that we're working with, that's a fertility specialist, he really truly believes our issue is some sort of inflammation that's going on in my husband's gut that's causing his fertility to be weak. And we've done a lot of testings, like very, very, very advanced testing, and we found a serious amount of inflammation in his diet, or sorry, in his body. And then we took it a step further and looked at his diet, and we looked at basically through blood work and through allergy testing what foods were causing an inflammation. And the foods that we found were mind blowing. Things like garlic, something that we literally were eating every single meal because it's healthy for you. It's great for your gut, right? We are told it's healthy for us. Eggs. He has a serious issue with eggs, shrimp, lobster, crab, some things that like you that aren't bad for you, but we were eating consistently, and what his body was so inflamed. And so basically after learning all of this information, and I did it as well, but I don't have as much of the inflammation as my husband has. We're really just kind of maintaining myself. But anyways, when we found all this out, we basically committed to clearing all of the foods out of our diets that we couldn't do. And my husband is almost down 50 pounds since December. He is like a different human being. He has more energy than like I can even explain. The other day, and he totally might, he won't be mad at me for saying this because I think it's just so wild. But, he was really struggling for a long time with like motivation and like energy. His testosterone was really, really low. And like he just couldn't work out. Like he physically just was like so tired by the end of the day. He had zero motivation to work out. And that was like that for a few years. And since doing this diet the other day, we're laying in bed. It's like 10 o'clock at nighttime. He gets out of bed and drops and gives it 50 push ups. He goes, "Come on, did you get your push ups in?" And I'm just like mind blown. I'm like, "Who are you? Like, what is this energy?" But he just feels good. And let me tell you, we're not doing anything different than just cutting out the foods that we tested to have intolerances to help reduce the inflammation. And I truly think that that's why my husband is just shedding weight. Like every day he's lost almost about 2 pounds. It's truly wild. But if you look at his body, if you look at his face, if you look at the areas in your body that you hold inflammation, like you can like his jawline is chiseled. And we were looking at old photos and like his cheeks to his neck almost looked like one unit before all of this. And now his like you could see his jaw, you could see his neck, you could see his Adam's apple now. It's wild. And it's just from inflammation. And so I think this is so important to talk about. And obviously, yes, I'm really passionate about it right now, but I've been passionate about this for a long time because I myself have found a lot of intolerances when I was younger. I had really bad leaky gut. I had really bad stomach issues when I was about 18 years old. And so I was just finding out a lot of other issues. And that's when I found out I had a dairy intolerance and a gluten intolerance. And now come to find out I have so many other intolerances that I'm not even intolerant to dairy anymore. But that's the beautiful part about reducing inflammation is when you find out you're intolerant to something or your body can't handle something, it's not necessarily like a death sentence of that food. Like you don't have to get rid of that food forever. What happens with your gut is you either build up what's called leaky gut or you build up like almost some sort of enzymes in your gut to where it like antibodies in a sense to where your body starts to attack the foods because it causes so much inflammation that your body thinks it's a foreign invader. And so when you constantly eat those foods, your body is constantly under attack. And what happens when our body is under attack, it inflames because that's your defense mechanism to basically fight and to heal, right? And so if you eliminate those foods to where your body gets rid of those antibodies, where your body gets rid of all those defense mechanisms, where it doesn't need to protect you anymore from these harmful foods, which really maybe aren't harmful, but in the moment they are. And then finally, they say food intolerances actually have a 90-day half-life. So if you can avoid these foods for 90 days, you can actually get rid of those antibodies and then you can slowly start to introduce them back in. Again, food intolerances, food allergies, are different. Food allergies is actually something that you are allergic to, like a peanut. If you were to eat a peanut, you can go into, shock. Some people can die from a peanut, right? That is an allergy. An intolerance is really truly just something that your body can't handle in the present moment. And you just need to filter out whatever inflammation, antibodies, enzymes that they've created to fight against these foods. You just got to get rid of them. And so if you're listening to this and you're feeling like you're in a situation where you're stuck, you feel like you can't lose weight, my first question is going to be look at your face, look at your belly, specifically like the pooch area, look underneath your arms, and look at your hips. If that feels inflamed and not just fat, my friends, like inflamed, like puffy, almost bloated, you might have a lot of inflammation in your body. And I would recommend considering your foods. Is there any food that you eat that you feel blah when you eat? Do you feel just tired? Do you feel groggy? Because that's something that I think a lot of people also misinterpret with food intolerances is it doesn't necessarily give you a stomach ache. It doesn't necessarily make you want to go to the bathroom and have diarrhea or you're constipated, right? Like a food intolerance could give you a headache. A food intolerance could make you really tired. A food intolerance can wreck your hormones, aka lower your testosterone, like in my husband's situation. It really truly can do so many other things that we don't maybe like account food to do. Like I said, diarrhea, constipation, vomiting, things like that. So if you're listening to me talk and you're like, God, I get headaches all the time. God, I'm bloated or puffy. Man, I just do. I feel really, really tired all the time. It's possible that you are eating something that is inflaming you. And I also want you to take off the mindset that what that food you're eating could be is bad, because it could be a healthy food. Like I personally, in my research, think eggs are one of the most nutrient dense, healthy foods on the planet. But both my husband and I tested inflamed to eggs. And it broke my heart because I had to get rid of them for at least 90 days. But my body didn't view them as the healthiest food. Even though there was a lot of nutrients in it, my body viewed it as a foreign invader. And so what I would recommend to you, if you're listening to this and you're feeling like you're maybe checking the box in all of those questions, I would start with a few foods that are very commonly causing inflammation. The first food is gluten. There's a reason why everyone seems to be gluten intolerant these days, because our bodies weren't designed to not only digest certain types of gluten, but the folic acid that is on gluten, which folic acid causes inflammation in the body. So I would first start off cutting gluten. Another very, very common intolerance is dairy. A lot of people can't digest dairy, and because a lot of pasteurized dairy does get rid of a lot of the good bacteria and a lot of the good enzymes that are needed. And so with that, the body can't seem to digest dairy. So that's another really common one. Eggs is another really common one as well that causes inflammation. Yeast as well, brewer's yeast or baker's yeast, which basically means any sort of yeast in beer, in wine. Wine actually has brewer's yeast, which is so depressing to me because I used to be a big wino and I tested inflamed to that. Baker's yeast, really any baked good, bagels, things like that. That's got a lot of baker or a lot of yeast in it as well. A lot of seafood actually tends to have some intolerances. Really, one of the only items that you're not very, very rarely going to be intolerant to is meats or chicken or poultry. It's just very low that you're going to be intolerant to those. But a lot of your other things, a lot of people have issues with things like tomatoes or nightshades, different types of vegetables. But I know this sounds overwhelming. So if you are feeling like you are falling in those lines, what I would recommend doing is picking one of those food groups. Maybe it be dairy, right? And just go 2 weeks or even 1 week and stay away from it and see how you feel. It actually can take up to 3 days for your body to show symptoms, if any, of an intolerance. So don't expect to, let's say, have a glass of milk and feel it like right then and there. You actually could be having a reaction to that milk up to 3 days later, which is wild, right? Because you could sit there and go, oh, I had this horrible headache today. Maybe it's from, my breakfast. No, it literally could be from meals 3 days ago. So that's why I do recommend doing about 1 week to 2 weeks so you can see if you notice any changes. And if you feel like, nope, I don't notice any changes, I feel fine, then introduce it back in your diet. And then if you start to feel those things, then you have an idea, okay, my body is intolerant maybe to dairy. And then what I would recommend is try to go 90 days without it. Because again, your body takes 90 days to get rid of the antibodies that it's built against these foods. And then after 90 days, you do that re-entry diet. So you're re-entering those foods back into your diet. If you have a reaction, I would do another 90 days. It typically will be gone in 90 days from my studies and what my doctor is teaching me, but it also can take more time depending how inflamed you are. So yes, you can go get a food test. I think raw, you guys might have one that you do yourself, or you can, get certain, there's a lot of doctors who do offer these tests. It's something that to look into if you are feeling stuck. But if you don't want to spend the money and get a test, like I said, this is the best free thing to do is take your common food groups. Again, gluten, eggs, dairy, some fish, yeast, nightshades, tomatoes, things like that. Maybe pick one at a time and just slowly eliminate them. See how your body reacts. If you feel better, then stay away from them. If you don't feel a difference, re-enter it. See if you notice a difference when you re-enter it. And then if you do, eliminate it. And then if you eliminate dairy and you're like, hey, I feel fine, I notice nothing, I re-enter it and it's fine, then you might not be dairy intolerant. Again, you can come and grow out of these. Like, it's so funny when we did this test, my whole life, ever since I took the test when I was 18, I had a huge inflammation to like dairy and gluten. So I've stayed away from dairy for most of my life. And when we got this test, I mean, I was expecting to see dairy, like I couldn't do dairy. I had no issues with dairy whatsoever. And my doctor's like, well, yeah, like that makes sense. You have avoided it for so long. Your body was able to build up the strength to be able to essentially eat it again. Where like my husband, he's markers on all dairy, can't do butter, can't do yogurt, can't do cheese, can't do milk, none of that. And I'm like, dang it, now I finally get the red, the green light to eat all these things, and now you can't. But so I think this is just a really great way, and it might sound like a lot. And again, it might sound overwhelming. And just like I talked about last episode, it might sound hard. Trust me, if you saw my husband and I's diet right now, like it is hard. But on the other hand, we feel amazing. And it's more hard to feel lazy. It's more hard to feel miserable and tired and inflamed. And again, put on a bathing suit and look in the mirror and be like, what in the world? Like, why am I so inflamed? It's easier when you feel good. And so if you are just listening to this and you're feeling like you're maybe checking these boxes, you're inflamed, you're getting headaches, you feel lethargic, you feel like you can't think straight, it's possible that what you're eating is causing so much inflammation in your body that that's all your body's focusing on. Because I think that's a really important thing to hit on too, is when your body is so focused on the inflammation in the gut, for example, fighting off all these foods, it's not focused on burning fat cells. It's not focused on your immune system. It's not focused on, let's just say, your muscles. It's focused on your gut. And this is kind of leading into an episode that we are going to talk about here in a couple weeks of allergies. If you get the seasonal allergies, it's also very likely that you have a lot of gut inflammation from food, because your body isn't able to sustain what's coming at it with these like environmental allergies, because it's so busy working on what's going on in your gut. So I know this was a lot of information, but Danny, I'm going to kind of hand it back to you to just see what your thoughts are on all this.
Yeah, I think it's amazing, Brooke, and I appreciate you sharing your story, with everyone here. And, I think some of the key takeaways are it doesn't have to be crazy. Like you can do one thing at a time and do it for 90 days. And I would even encourage that, kind of like you said, because then you really see what the issue is or not, and then reintroduce it to see if you have a response or not, if you don't feel much of a difference. I think that's really good, and a lot of times it takes 90 days, like you said. I like that, to make sure that you actually cut it out for 90 days. Takes time for your gut to heal and what have you. Now we do offer one, or we have one here. We don't really like promote it or anything like that, but it's called Viome. I mean, anyone can go on and use it. That's one I've used, and I had a lot of ones that I found that I was intolerant to with that, because it's a blood and stool sample, which I think is important to not just do like blood or what have you. You know what I mean? I think there's other factors, but now if somebody does want to take it to the next level and really find out what there is, do you have any other resources or tips on like how to find like a testing kind of situation that they can really find out what they need to do?
Yeah, so I would recommend looking for what's called an IgG and an IgE test. A lot of like doctor's office will offer this. I think you can sometimes get the kits online as well. But this is what I would look for, because there's a difference between food intolerance tests, which are a little bit more surface level, or there's the IgG and IgE. And basically, what that is IgE is the antibodies that are created with allergies. So if you go to find out if you have allergies, for example, like that prick test where they like put the pricks on your back to like see if you have allergies, if you're allergic to peanuts, like all of that stuff, it's testing for IgEs. It's testing for your IgE responses, which is again is an antibody that's created for the purpose of an allergy. IgG testing is the presence of antibodies for inflammation. So this is where I would highly recommend looking for is IgG testing, but most of them come together. But this is what I recommend looking for. You can really truly sometimes find a quick Google search to see who offers them. I'm happy to share. I've worked with Dr. Nick, he's a chiropractor on Hall Road through Next Generation Chiropractic. I know he offers it there. My mom got hers through there, and the doctor that we're working with obviously has it with him as well. But you really, truly, a lot of places are starting to offer this test. So I would just recommend looking for IgE, IgG testing, and you'll be able to find a doctor. You might even be able to get the kit online yourself to test for it. And that's where I would start. And then basically, whatever your results come as, I would do 90 days without those foods of all of the foods that you tested for, and then slowly, one by one, reintroduce those back in. Because I know after 90 days, I will be cracking myself a beautiful sunny side up egg. I am just so excited.
I know eggs is one of the ones that and I actually feel that you asked like earlier, not to me specifically, but you asked like, are there any foods that you just like feel blah? And I do feel like that when I eat eggs.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate because it's such an easy food to kind of eat and consume. So, no, Brooke, I appreciate you and appreciate you sharing this. I think this is very valuable for the people listening. So, hopefully you guys got some value from that, and hopefully this is a little eye opening for you on just another thing that you can implement into potentially living your best life, and something as simple as just cutting a food out for 90 days and all of a sudden you're feeling much better. That's a huge win. So I would say give it a try, maybe find some of those most intolerant potential foods that Brooke listed out and start cutting out some of those for 90 days if you're willing and able, or if you want to, actually invest and look for an opportunity to get one of the IgG tests and see for yourself of what actually might be the issue. I think we both agree that you should go for it. So if you found some value in today, please give us a rating and review. Share this with your friends, family, or somebody that maybe is struggling with something similar to Brooke or something else that they just can't figure out an answer to. Maybe they're intolerant to food, and they'll forever thank you. So but we forever thank you guys and appreciate you guys for listening in. So until next time, another Completely Flawed podcast episode.